Hello everybody, this is Fun Police, and today I am bringing you an update to my commander tier list of a video I did a while ago. Now, of the 12 commanders that were in the game at the time, what you see on screen is how I previously ranked them. I think most of this is still fairly accurate, but I did want to make some adjustments to it, and then also add the 4 new commanders that have been added over the last couple updates. If you are curious about my original 12 commanders and you want to have me talk about them more in depth, I highly recommend going to watch the first video that I did on the commander tier list. Today I'm mostly going to talk about why I'm adjusting a couple of them and the new commanders, so I'm not going to spend time going through every single commander again. I want to start by moving a couple commanders into different tiers in order to signify my more updated thoughts on them in retrospect compared to a couple months ago when I did that original tier list. The first one I want to move is the Cybernetic, who I want to move from A tier down to B tier. Now, Cybernetic I always thought was a fairly good commander because of the double tool slot. That was kind of his one gimmick, and it was a fairly powerful one because of the ability to stack multiple shields together. However, Capitalist has come out, and we'll talk about him in a minute, but he has essentially done everything Cybernetic wants to, and also has several other really strong abilities on him. So Cybernetic, I think, has really lost his place, and now is a commander that actually seriously needs buffs in order to, have a good purpose again. And on top of that, I also want to move Roughneck down from B tier into C tier. I think I was too generous with the Roughneck, and especially with several new commanders that are even stronger in boarding potential, I think the Roughneck is really starting to show that he is underpowered compared to the rest of the commander choices. His stats are just unimpressive, he doesn't deal a lot of damage, and his synergy of being able to cause breaches doesn't work with the majority of crew members that you can find throughout a game. So he ends up being, I think, an extremely niche pick, and is the only commander that I'm going to actually put into a C tier. As a quick refresher of the different tiers, generally I consider S tier commanders to generally be the most flexible commanders in the game. Often this is because of their innate boarding potential. It does not mean that they are exclusively stronger than A tier commanders, but you can take them on more ships and feel comfortable. A tier commanders are where I think most commanders should end up. They are strong, they have a real purpose, and overall are very capable. B tier commanders, I think in general, could use some adjustments, maybe a small to moderate buff here or there. And then the C tier commander, or Roughneck, I think needs some significant buffs in order to actually stand on his own compared to the rest of the commanders. However, I also want to get a bit more accurate, because when I originally did this tier list, I just threw the images up in the order that we put them in there, but I want to actually rank the different tiers based on where I think commanders are. So we're going to rank the tiers, and, the farthest left commander in A is the strongest A tier commander, while the one on the far right would be the weakest. So we need to rearrange this image a bit more. With how S tier currently looks, I don't think there's any need to adjust anything there. However, A tier, I think, needs some adjustments. Namely, Archmage probably needs to sink further down in A tier. This is especially because of some of the new commanders that have started to drive him down in capabilities. On top of the fact that he is not the most exciting commander to play, he's still good, but he isn't like the top of A tier. And on top of that, I'm also going to move Paladin up a little bit in A tier as well. I think in general, Mutant is probably one of the strongest boarding commanders in the game, and he's overall a very consistent one. Same thing with Priestess being another excellent boarder, and also Paladin, who's emboldened, gives you some guaranteed Purify value on top of general combat buffs and all that. White, I think, is starting to get on the weaker end of A tier because of his slow movement speed and limited slots. There's some real issues where sometimes the White just, can't respond to things as needed, which makes his large stat capability not as impressive, and I already talked about the Archmage. B tier is actually also pretty much in the order that I think. Cannibal is definitely the top of B tier, and arguably he should be the bottom of A tier, but I think that he has like enough restrictions that he is like a commander that like kind of exists in a middle ground between them, because he doesn't really need buffs, because if he gets any stronger, he's going to probably become too strong, but at the same time, he has some of the most volatility in the game, where there are just certain times and encounters that completely screw him over. So I think putting him at the top of B is a fitting place. Cybernetic, I think you could argue, is either right above or right below the Assassin. However, I think the Assassin, due to her fragility and the fact that poison is not always super effective, especially if you're facing death cult units, means that she kind of ends up being a little bit worse for wear. And I think Witch is fitting as the bottom of B tier. Her lack of scaling in the late game, as I said in the original video, is often a big issue and is something that holds her back and is what she needs buff for. And then of course, Roughneck being in C tier on his own means that, you know, he is the bottom of the barrel. So now, let's go ahead and talk about the new commanders that are in the game. We'll go in the order that they were added. So that means that our first commander coming up is the Doomweaver. She is a 65 health and 3 DPS commander. She has the innate damage reduction passive found on War Called units, meaning enemies deal 1 less damage per second when fighting her. She also has a armor slot, a weapon slot, and a free psyker slot in order to utilize. Then, her biggest unique attribute is the innate ability Threat of Ruins. It reads, if manning the command throne, instantly kill the highest HP hostile crew in target room. Otherwise, she will teleport to target room and deal 15 damage to any hostile crew within there. This is a once per use fight, but what this means is that the Doomweaver is a innate boarder. She has the ability to board the enemy ship from the start of the game and throughout it. This means that by default, I would consider her an S tier commander. The ability to also passively have that damage reduction and the armor and weapon slot means she can become a pretty competent fighter as well. However, I would put her at the bottom of S tier, as her low health is a big enough issue that I don't think she outclasses neither the Exile nor the Cyberfused. And really, that Threads of Ruin teleportation is the only thing keeping her in A tier, or in S tier I mean. She would probably be the bottom of A tier or even a B tier commander without that innate boarding. But because she has that innate boarding, she is just very flexible. She's, you know, a good enough boarder on her own. And late game, if you have solved your boarding with an item or whatever, you can just delete like a knight on the enemy ship, which is a pretty nice ability. Next up, we have the Barbarian. The Barbarian is a 90 health, 3 DPS commander. He has a couple unique passives. The first one unique to him is an immunity to debilitating effects. What this means is effects like stuns and slows do not affect him, allowing him to operate in certain conditions that otherwise would be annoying for most other crew. On top of that, he also moves fast in the same speed that the Mutant and the Assassin does. He does come with a weakness of a 100% suffocation weakness, meaning that he will take double damage when in vacuums. His equipment slots are also unique, as he is the only character to be able to equip 3 weapons, and then he also has a tool slot. In essence, I find the Barbarian is essentially a variation of the Mutant. He has the ability to be worse than the Mutant because of his lower health, DPS, and that weakness, but he also has the potential to end up better than the Mutant due to that 3rd weapon slot. The ability to have 3 weapons can't be understated because it allows him to create some truly broken weapon combos in the late game. You can have like a flamethrower to damage everybody in a room, something like a electro weapon that will then stun upon every kill, and then something like a decapitator or some other high DPS weapon, and the Barbarian will be like a 10 DPS hitting everything and then stunning upon every kill, and that is extremely powerful. combined with the fact he can also carry a shield to increase his survivability or take a boarding weapon like a translocator. He has a lot of perks going for him. On the tier list, I think he very easily fits in an A tier spot. However, I would not put him right next to Mutant. I think Mutant being more consistent is a big deal, and I think that the Barbarian fits better sort of in the middle of the group. Sort of maybe above the White and the Archmage overall, but a little bit below some other A tier commanders. Those weaknesses, especially with how exclusion zones are currently like the quote-unquote meta way to play the game, means that the Barbarian can have some real issues with vacuums that is hard to avoid. In the future, if exclusion zones were not as dominating as the places you wanted to go, maybe the Barbarian could climb a little bit up in A tier, but I think this is a good placement for him right now. The Capitalist was the third new commander that we got in the last couple updates. He is an 80 health, 3 DPS commander. His unique passive is merchant prices are reduced by 10%, meaning everything is 10% cheaper to buy in stores. He also has the following equipment slots: 1 armor, 1 weapon, and 2 tool slots. The Capitalist also has additional equipment that he starts with. He will begin every run with 2 fleshy regents, 2 dark matter prisms, and 2 repair drones. The Capitalist is, I think, one of the best commanders in the game at the moment. And the reason for this is that all of the things I have praised like Cybernetic for with the double tool slot remains relevant with the Capitalist. However, the Capitalist goes above and beyond because that passive cost reduction may not seem like a lot, but if you factor in how much scrap you spend in shops, and on Torment 12, on average, you spend about 700 scrap in shops, that means that the Capitalist essentially gives you 70 free scrap over the course of the run, which can result in the ability to buy an extra crew member, upgrade a weapon system again, or just buy a new system entirely. That is very, very powerful and can definitely make or break a run over the course of it. Then combine all of that with the ability to start with 4 boarding options, because keep in mind, the fleshy regents can claim chests for you, and due to the fact that you summon 9 fleshlings from it, it's very likely one of them will break the chest before the enemy crew can respond. And then you also have the 2 dark matter prisms, and 2 repair drones is always useful. Things like the necro barges phase 2 are always quite nasty, and repair drones definitely help to offset that. I think there is just so much that is going for Capitalist that he very much deserves an S tier placement, and in fact, I'm going to put him above Cyberfuse because of all of the things going for him. Double Shield is just really, really strong, and I think that maybe Exile is still better than him due to how universal the Exile is, but I think Capitalist could very well be argued to be even better. He is definitely a top 2 commander and is extremely, extremely good. And finally, the last commander that only came out a couple days ago, the Harris. This is a commander that has 105 HP and 5 DPS. She has a passive where she will gain 5 life whenever she kills something. She has 1 armor, 1 weapon, and 1 psyker slot, and a unique innate ability called Hypnosis. This is a super version of mind control that you get from something like Treasonous Whispers. It instantly casts, travels very quickly, and lasts for 20 seconds. The normal mind control only lasts for 11 seconds, so nearly twice as long. The Harris is quite the insane commander in my opinion. This is, alongside the Capitalist, one of 2 commanders that I think are actually too strong at the moment and kind of in need of nerfs. The Harris just is probably the best combat commander in the game. Her high health total, incredible DPS, and the ability to mind control means that as a solo boarder, she is extremely capable. On top of that, that passive healing means she more likely is closer to 120, 130 health in a big fight, which is very, very powerful. She doesn't have any downsides. She can even take Psyker spell, so she can be rocking Purify or a ability like Blood Spear or whatever you end up finding and buying during a run. There just really is not a lot that the Harris can't do. She is super, super strong, and in fact, personally, I'm going to put her up in S tier. And in fact, I would not even put her at the bottom of S tier. I would put her above Doomweaver. That is how powerful I believe the Harris is. She might not be as strong as the other 3 S tier commanders, as they also have very strong stats and consistent innate boarding, but I think the Harris honestly really does earn her spot. She is the strongest boarding commander, and she makes commanders like the Archmage and Mutant look a lot worse in comparison. She is very, very good, and that is my thought on the various commanders. So, if you did enjoy this shorter video today and the updated tier list, which now is on screen, make sure to give a like and subscribe. Let me know down in the comments what you think of the different commanders. Do you think this tier list looks good? What your changes would you make? And also let me know down there if you would be interested in me talking about how I would rebalance the commanders. I've thought about this, how maybe to adjust some of them, like buffing Roughneck, or maybe nerfing something like Capitalist a little bit. So if you're interested in a video like that, let me know down in the comments below, and maybe I'll end up making it. But if you have watched all the way to the end of this video, I want to thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a good day.